Welcome to After the Shoot, a podcast where we take a peek behind the lens to get inspired by the stories, challenges, and ideas of some of the most successful photographers in the business. I'm Justin Benson from Aftershoot, an AI culling and editing software that helps give photographers like you your time back, so you can focus on what you do best while our magical unicorns take care of the most boring and time-consuming parts of your job. I'll be your host for this podcast, and I'm so excited to have you here as we talk with some of my favorite creators.
I quit my job that day and I just said, I'm just gonna do this from now on. This is way less stressful. And then I've just been doing it since. Any niche has something in SEO that somebody's searching. You're ultimately just trying to figure out, like, what is my ideal client looking for and how do I become the first person to give them that answer? The more you learn about keyword research, the more you understand what people who wanna work with you are gonna ask you, so you can start creating assets for those people immediately.
Hey everyone, welcome to After the Shoot. Today's podcast episode is so insightful and honestly probably one of the funnier episodes you're gonna check out. I got to sit with Roy Serafin, a master of all things SEO. If he wants to rank in a place, he will get there and he knows how, and this episode is all about teaching you how you can get your SEO game stepped up. Now, if you're ready for some laughs and some learning, tune in and enjoy the show. Tell us how you got started in photography.
So I used to be an advertising director, and what that would mean is that I would be in charge of some design stuff, I'd be in charge of building teams, hiring the right people, and sometimes that means hiring photographers. So when you're not a photographer, photographers speak very different languages. If I have something that I want to come out of a project, I would have to kind of try and translate it to the photographer, and I just learned, it's probably better to actually learn the skill. So we were on a long project. I bought a camera, and then I annoyed a photographer for probably 6 weeks straight, asking questions every single day until he probably never wanted to talk to me again. But in that process, as I was learning, I got really addicted. And then I started doing, I would just go walk around the streets of Chicago and shoot around. And slowly from that point on, I really got into it, started doing travel stuff for some of the brands we worked with. And then that leads to people asking one of two questions, which is, do you do weddings or do you do boudoir? And I felt like I fit more in weddings than I do boudoir. I'm pretty, but I'm not that pretty. So the transition kind of started there. And the other thing about being an art director is it's a very stressful job. So you're working 60, 70 hours a week. And if you do a great job, you get a thumbs up. If you don't do a great job, you get yelled at for 4 hours by 4 old dudes that are sitting at a table and you've made every mistake. And it could have just been you miscapitalized something. So the first wedding I did, I said, okay, fine, I'll give this a shot. I'd been shooting for a little while, and then the bride, she calls me after I deliver the wedding, and I'm thinking, I messed this up, because this isn't a time, it's in a Google file somewhere, it's a Drive file she got with all the photos.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, we've made a huge mistake. She's calling, she's crying, she's upset. She pauses, she finally gets kind of, it clears up and can speak English again. And she says, I just had no idea my husband looked at me that way prior to, when I'm not looking at him. And so I quit my job that day and I just said, I'm just going to do this from now on. This is way less stressful. And then I've just been doing it since.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So your first wedding was that just changed your life.
Yeah. If I look at it now, I'm very embarrassed by that wedding because I didn't do a great job, but we've learned editing and I still captured what I needed to for that couple.
Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah. I don't think there's many people who could look at their first wedding and say, best work I've ever done.
There's a photo in that gallery somewhere where the bride is she's leaning against a brick wall and the husband is awkwardly standing down an alleyway 10 feet away where it looks like he's just stalking her. I call it the Jack the Ripper photo.
That's amazing though. I mean, that's we all did some things that we probably, I will admit, I once did selective color on an engagement session. So we all do things that we regret.
I wouldn't admit that publicly.
Yeah, I know. This is the first time anyone's heard that story, so please don't tune in. Yeah, no, now everyone's going to know it. So definitely, a cool launching point. That means you're very creative.
Yeah.
How does that then actually fall into SEO?
Yeah, so eventually you have to start doing leads and start getting some business coming in because it can't all be word of mouth, especially as you start wanting to travel this is what I want to do. I never really like to work in the place that I live. I like to travel, go somewhere else, kind of go around. And so, I did Facebook ads. I was really good at that for a while. Then I think iOS or whatever changed and that stopped working. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out something. Worked with people like Ben Hartley, Jeff Armstrong, the guys from Super Photos, and just kind of started picking up this thing. I'm like, oh, I really like this. This is interesting because it's basically just changing Word documents and then posting them with your images inside them. There's a lot more to it, but I got really into it and I just started like obsessing over it, kind of like photography. And now I just spend most of my day trying to figure out, like, if I want to go to that place, how do I go for free from a piece of content that I wrote?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's advice for people at home. You can absolutely go places for free if you can tweak a Word document.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the thing is I would say now, if you want to get leads from them, you're going to need to have some form of like couple inside of it that shows you can do good portraits. But if you take amazing street photos, people will generally lend that trust to somewhere else. So if you can, you can get a really cool photo of a city and show the backdrop, they go, oh, I trust that person. So as long as something photographically is showing that you're a good photographer and the information is helpful to somebody who's trying to plan a wedding or go somewhere or pick somewhere to go, they'll talk to you.
That's amazing. So we'll dive into SEO now. I think this is that was the perfect lead into this all. So SEO, search engine optimization.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how you appear, how you rank on the internet.
Yeah.
That means that you and I are the same photographer in the same city trying to get the same clients, and I appear first in the search and you appear 10th.
Not if I'm in the city you're in. No, but
okay, you appear first and I appear 23rd.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because a lot of people do think that way. It's like, well, as soon as I get to the top of the search results, I'm good. The thing is that you and I probably have very different clients. Mine are going to be very laid back. They're not going to want to deal with a whole lot of stuff. They're really happy with sarcastic remarks and that kind of thing. And so like, there's still a tailored version of this where you still have to tailor to that client as you're writing it. But yeah, ultimately, if I get to that first result in Google and I connect with the person that's talking, that's reading it through the writing or through whatever assets I'm giving inside of there, they're more than likely going to start reaching out. You could do the same thing. You could be position 2 or 3, talk to a completely different bride or a different room or whatever, and all of a sudden now you have a different lead coming in and you're still getting clicks. Less than me, but you're still getting clicks.
I love it. So all right, so SEO, is this only something that like applies to like Google, or is this?
So it's not something that necessarily applies. You got to remember, Google's a really big company. So Google owns YouTube. So they actually, if you've ever looked into the history of how like thumbnails are picked and everything, they read images, they can categorize them, they break down things that way. There's an aspect of this that lends itself to photography. You can do it for travel stuff. You can do it for like local recommendations. Really, any niche has something in SEO that somebody's searching. You're ultimately just trying to figure out like, what is my ideal client looking for, and how do I become the first person to give them that answer? So it's more of a serve first and sell later type thing, where I want you to think I'm like the most helpful person of all time through getting to you first.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So SEO is a huge thing, right? I mean, every business is worried about it. No matter what scale of the business, whether you're a small-time photographer or a huge corporation, SEO is number one because that's how people find you, more or less. Does SEO apply like on something, say, like Google Maps?
Yeah, so there are what you would call local listings. Now, local listings can be hard as photographers because typically we all work out of our house. So you really don't want people showing up your house asking you for passport photos, which can happen if you give out your address. So there's some manipulation that you can do inside of like Google Maps where your business is listed that says like, okay, we're appointment only, and you put your keyword in there. So for me, for example, I live out in St. Augustine. It might say something like St. Augustine wedding photographer or photography, depending on which one has more search terms. I want to fit that in there, in addition to also just explaining what services I offer, right? Because again, I don't do passport photos. That's not really worth my time. They can do that at CPS. But I do weddings, I do engagements, maternity, like those kind of things. That's where I want to show up. And so inside that map pack, I want to, show up for the area by setting a service area of like St. Augustine, instead of being like, hey, here's my house. You want to come surprise me at my door on Tuesday? And also, I want to go a little bit wider than my city. So I want to rank in that map pack there. So it's there, and it's also on your website for different things. But your website can rank for like anything. I have, I think it's places to elope in Las Vegas. I rank for that. There's a few, kind of all over the country that I rank for. Chicago's one of them, and I'm pretty far from Chicago. That's a 1,200-mile difference, give or take. And so yeah, it's all encompassing. And the more you learn about keyword research, the more you understand what people who want to work with you are going to ask you, so you can start creating assets for those people immediately.
Okay. So I know nothing about SEO. I
Obviously.
knew the name, just saying, but but so with SEO, where's like the starting point? Where should somebody be looking to learn anything about SEO?
Sure. So I have a free Facebook group that people can come learn, hang out with me. It's called Storing Community. It's on Facebook. If you're a photographer in general and you want to learn how to kind of do some things, there's free resources in there. YouTube is another place you can find me. And then conferences like the one we're at right now, the Boca Photo Summit in Atlanta. Like, these are places where you can meet other people like me who will teach you. There's courses out there that I've written a course. They're all over the place. It doesn't matter so much where you're getting the information, as long as it's obviously good information, but as long as you put in the work, which means start posting something as soon as you learn how to do it. A lot of people, they'll learn and they go, okay, well, I've got all this information, and they write an article and they leave it in like Google Docs somewhere instead of uploading it as a blog post. Nobody's going to find you in Google Docs. At least I hope. It should be on private.
So we have SEO as like the threshold to being found, right? So what factors actually, quantify that? Is it blog posts? Is it like copy? Is it pictures on your website? How do you
Google
do this?
has something crazy like 2,500 different ranking factors that all have different little weights to them. Now, you don't have to get all of them correct, because that would be insane. But you have to get a lot of them correct. So making sure that the piece of content that you're writing matches the keywords that you found. You had to do some keyword research and think like, okay, somebody's getting married in my city. What do they need to know? Probably engagement locations, where wedding venues are, which ones you recommend specifically, not just ones that sound nice. What do they expect, as a client to get from a wedding photographer, those kind of things. So you have to find what they're looking for. Then you have to answer the question directly. Google's very, very specific that if they land on your page and they have a bad experience, meaning they get to the page and they leave right away because their questions weren't answered, they're done. So you have to make sure you're answering the question thoroughly, interestingly, keeping people's attention, and then also making sure that it's optimized with enough keywords in there. So if I'm talking about wedding photography in a certain location, there's going to be a sub keyword that's also important to make sure it's in the document somewhere. Like if we're doing Atlanta wedding photographer, probably Atlanta wedding photography or photographers in Atlanta, those are going to be other keywords you want to try and fit into those pages. You can get leads from your homepage, you can get leads from your blog posts. You should do both.
Interesting. So your actual homepage should be kind of littered with keywords. So not
strategically
clustered.
littered.
Yeah. Yeah. It shouldn't just say, photographer in Connecticut because Connecticut likes photography and I'm a photographer in Connecticut.
Right.
But it strategically place words that make sense, that are those keywords that your clients are going to look for. Should that be reiterated throughout the site, or just for should you be worried about making your keywords appear in one page and not another, or all the pages?
Yeah, you have to be careful, right? So what happens is if, let's say you're writing a page about Connecticut wedding photography, and then you have another page where you're talking about your services, like you're maybe giving price information or whatever, and then you keep using that keyword from the homepage. Well, Google, it's a robot, okay? It's going to look at it and go, well, he says this page is about this, but this page is also about this, so I don't know which one is correct. Means it's bad. It's not good quality. I don't know where to send the people. So one page can kind of bring another page down, and then all of a sudden you're not ranking at all. So not every page should have a keyword, and not every page should be the same keyword. I typically don't try and rank about pages. I don't necessarily try and rank like pricing pages, but I do try and rank the home page, and then strategic blog posts. Ones that are, is this going to reach my ideal client? And is this going to bring to my brand? Is it relevant to what I do and also the area I'm trying to do it in?
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. So,
Yeah.
so you get started in SEO, you've found those keywords that you're looking for. What does a blog post, I'm an old person, right?
Sure.
So the blog posts I used to make were literally, they weren't for SEO. I was just sharing because I was like, hey, look, I shot this wedding at this venue and I have a blog now.
Yeah.
So I would just share photos of my clients at a venue, and I would write a 1-paragraph blip that was just like, it was raining, life was good, we're married, and then I would post it, right? So what should photographers be looking to do with blog posts these days?
So if you want to work at a specific venue, you can do kind of what you're doing. Now you're on a similar track to where it could be correct, but it's not. So like you got to think about this from a perspective. Like somebody is not going to be looking for John and Carrie's wedding. Like they're going to be looking for John and Carrie get married at whatever the venue's name is. They are going to be looking for information about that venue or the venue's wedding photography. So like what are questions that are going to come up when you're looking at a venue as a couple, right? How much does it cost? How many people does it fit? What kind of wedding is it good to fit for? What about it makes it unique photographically? You want to answer those and then make sure you're sprinkling in your best images inside of that post. If you are determined, and some people are, that you want to post just a whole bunch of images, there's a limit to how many you can post, okay? Photographers are known for this. We think, oh, our images are our words, and they're just not. A robot needs to know context. Like the text needs to give your images context, and also too many will slow down a page. So what you can do is say, okay, I've shot 4 weddings at this venue. I love this venue. I want to show off these amazing pictures. You're going to pick the best photos from those weddings. You're going to put them in the original blog post, and then you can create other posts that show 40 or so images from each wedding you did there, and then no index them. So it's giving it context, and it's good for a user basis where they can go see more work from you, but you are not going to run into the possibility where those blog posts are now competing with the original one you were trying to write in the first place.
Makes total sense. So now I'm going through, I've created some blog posts. How am I tracking it? Am I just like going onto Google and being like, hey, I'm number 1?
No, because Google's search results, people don't realize this. Google search results they're customized to you. Okay, it's kind of like if you go on Facebook and you I don't know, maybe at one point you said dog toys and all of a sudden you're getting 35 ads for dog toys. If I go look for a wedding photographer, it's going to take into the history of my searches into account, and also the location. If your phone is on and you have Google on your phone, which is everybody at this point, when you pull that up, it's going to be like, oh, okay, well, he's in Atlanta right now, so he's looking for Atlanta wedding photographers. So I would say that's not a great place to track that kind of information, but Google has a tool called Google Search Console, and this is straight from the source. I would say this is going to be your most accurate kind of piece of information you can get, because it'll tell you like, hey, listen, your site's ranking for this page is doing really well here. And you can look and see like, okay, I'm position 7 for this term. Maybe I need a little more information to get to position 1, because the higher up you are in position, more clicks you're going to get.
Yeah.
So that's where I do a lot of my like optimization on my own site. And then you have tools. One I love using for keyword research in general is called SE ranking. And you can do competitive research where you type in, let's say there's a photographer in your area that's amazing. You can then go and say, okay, well, I want to take their website and find out what is working on this page and what's not. It'll run everything. It'll show you what keywords are working and where the traffic is coming from. So it's a little bit of a combination of a few tools.
That's great. So would you recommend to a photographer, do you say like, okay, you're gonna get into the business and you're trying to grow and you're trying to scale, should they be, you said you were a master of Facebook ads at one point, should they be focusing more energy on something like SEO, or should they be trying to come up with those ad campaigns and strategies?
So I'm a believer, first of all, none of your leads should only be coming from one source. So for me, I like old school stuff. So I like SEO. I also like to do a lot of in-person networking. I like to go to events and I like to meet venue owners and kind of like see if we can create a deal or something or work together. And then, yeah, if you want to supplement it with ads, it's fine, but it also depends on your personality. So like for me, I have no desire whatsoever to go on Instagram and make a reel every day. I don't want to do that. That sounds like a migraine inducing task. But for some photographers, that's where they're best fit. And so it's where can you put the biggest impact on your business where you're the most happy consistently. And if you feel like SEO is still something you're missing, you can always hire someone like my team to come through and we'll do the SEO for you. You just go create amazing work and maybe sometimes get images from places that we're trying to target.
I love it. No,
Yeah.
that's great advice. I think, marketing on a whole, having multi-funnels, because SEO, in theory, SEO is pretty stable, but it can change overnight.
100%.
I mean, all it takes is a switch flipping at Google and they say, yep, disqualifying this, disqualifying that, and then you're back to ground zero. You have to kind of build up your SEO again.
I mean, to your point, there's a lot of content updates that happen, and I try and teach people like, okay, this is what's been working forever. This is what you should be doing, and it's really just understanding the core values of what they're trying to do at Google, which is how do I get the best results so that more people use our platform. So you do have to keep in mind that sometimes things are going to work and sometimes they don't. For example, the way that you described writing a blog post probably would have worked really well in 2008. Like it would have been great if you just throw a bunch of images and a little paragraph, you probably would get some traffic from that. But now you have other people like me who are optimizing words and trying to be more helpful and those kind of things. And that's where I can just jump on in and say, okay, fine, I'm gonna outrank Justin every day now for no reason at all.
I feel bad because I'm pretty sure if you tried, you would just immediately outrank me in my own state if you wanted to. I know you don't want to.
So Connecticut, I will say, is one of the harder states because it's very competitive, and also people in Connecticut all tend to search the same thing. Like you look for a Connecticut wedding photographer instead of a city, photographer.
Yes, yep.
And so that comes down to now, okay, I need to have local relevance as well. So that's like, I might write something like that would fit with I want to fit with my audience. So I want to talk to couples. I also want to be specific to the area. And I also want to see if I can't figure out a way to kind of put a slow sell or something, like maybe like a couple session. So I'm going to not only readjust my homepage or create like a landing page specifically for Connecticut, but then I'm also going to start creating content around Connecticut, like best restaurants, where to go for date nights, little romantic giveaways, kind of things that would be in line with my ideal client. So I could do it. It would just be a lot of work.
That is a lot. Yeah, I believe you could do it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I have fear. I mean, I probably don't even show up anywhere at this point. But I don't think I've done a blog post in years. But that's interesting because so many of us feel like we're kind of trapped, right? So we feel like SEO is this big scary beast, and we can't even stick our foot in the door. And if you're showing up in 5th place, it's probably not great, but it's probably not really bad. If you're on the first page there's a chance you're getting looked at.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because I think, and I'm not going to remember the exact percentages off the top of my head, but 30% of the organic search clicks go to position 1. 30%, but then you drop down, you're 15%, you drop down, you're 5%. So like it keeps getting lower and lower and lower. And by the time you're on page 2, like you could literally put a dead body on page 2 and nobody would find it. And the other thing is like you could have everything right word-wise, but if your site has no history and it doesn't have any backlinks, which is like Aftershoot.com linking back to my website or some other site that's seen as an authority figure, my word isn't going to be taken as well until the site has some history behind it. So you have to start working on backlinks as well.
So backlinks, we didn't even talk about backlinks.
There's a lot.
There's so many things, and this is why obviously someone's going to hire you and your team because you'll take care of this stuff.
Yeah.
But for those who are listening and feel like they're going to do it and then they're going to hire you instead, what is a backlink? And how do you get backlinks? I don't have any backlinks.
You probably do. So the thing is that backlinks can happen in a multitude of different ways. For example, are you a member of Fearless Photographers?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a backlink from Fearless Photographers. If you sign up for directories, The Knot, Wedding Wire, like those are backlinks. Also, if you get published somewhere, if somebody picks it up and says like, hey, listen, I want to have, I really like this image from Justin. I'm going to talk about the best wedding photography that happened in the country or something like that. And you get featured there, that's a backlink. You can also do something called guest posting where, let's say I run a really big like wedding website in general. You might have expertise in a subject and it might be for a term that you have no chance of ranking for. Like it's like a 60 or 70 on that scale. You can write the content, but you need a much higher backlink structure. They might have more authority, they might have more backlinks. And so you go, oh, hey, listen, I'll write this for you as long as I can put a link back into my own website. And that's a guest post. They're usually fine with that. And you can get a lot of massive traffic coming from that way, in addition to just the backlinks being built up. So there's 100 different ways to do it. They're all very tedious or very expensive. It's really the 2 options you have. But over time, like I don't have to work that hard to get leads. I've gotten, for my own photography website, 330 leads in a year, and I don't. You can go on my Instagram. I probably posted 3 weeks ago. It's a major source, and it's just they're from all over the place because I've spent the time and put the effort in, and that's all it is. Anyone who's winning at SEO has the ability to be overtaken by somebody who's willing to work harder or smarter than you are.
True.
Just like anything else.
Yeah. No. That's important. I mean, you have to always be working at it, right? But once you've gotten the heavy lifting, then the work is a lot easier because then it's just kind of maintaining it and making sure that you still have to post, right? So
yeah, it used to be that you didn't need to, there wasn't a cadence quite as much. It's not like social media. You don't need to do a blog post every day unless you're crazy. But I mean, by all means, if that's what you want to do, go for it. But I'd say like you have this ability to, if your site's brand new, you need like a couple of posts that kind of explain the area because you need something called topical authority. I live in this area. I'm a wedding photographer. I should know these things. I need these kind of things to help build my backlink profile on the homepage. And so what you would do is you would write those, and then after that point in time, like I could not post for the next 3 months and my site probably wouldn't be affected very much. But the more often I post, the more updated Google thinks the site is, and then it's going to reward that behavior because I'm building part of their assets. I'm trying to be a contributing member. As long as the content quality is good, you should see your website growing. It's very simple.
Okay. So that's another great point, that I'm the type of person who doesn't update my website. So the last time I updated my website was like, I think 2019.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm not going to appear anywhere on searches. Now,
not necessarily. It depends
well,
on how
yeah.
lazy your friends are nearby.
True. But so if I were to go in and just revise some pages, does that count as like being an updated site?
Yeah, so if you update your portfolio page, Google still sees it as an update. Is it as valuable as like your new blog post that explains something new? Not necessarily, because it's not gonna. I kind of think of it like rain buckets. Like your homepage, it's trying to capture that city wedding photographer page or whatever you do, and then the blog posts are trying to get more. It's trying to catch more rain, which is more leads. And so if you only have one bucket, you're not going to catch very much water. But if you have 30 or 40 buckets, we're catching a lot of water, and the site's more valuable to Google. Your content's going to be trusted easier, and you're probably going to be able to rank for things that some people just cannot rank for.
Yeah, that's wild. So this is just a huge marketing strategy.
Yeah.
I mean, you really, I don't know that it's. I don't know so this is basically just like a big marketing strategy, and it's something that's worth investing in because if done well, right, by somebody who, particularly you guys, the industry, so investing in something like this, it's almost a guaranteed funnel.
Yeah, well, nothing is ever necessarily guaranteed because you can understand the concepts and still write all their own content. So it just depends on what you wrote. For example, if I'm a wedding photographer and I only write about the best ice cream shops in my city, that's not really that helpful or relevant.
Yep.
It's nice if you like ice cream, but it's not going to help me in the long run. So yeah, it's a huge marketing platform. It's a great way to keep people like getting eyes on your site. So for example, the reason I don't like Instagram is if I make one post, that post is going to die pretty quickly. I'll post something and then like maybe it's the best image I've ever taken of all time. It's got a shelf life on that platform of a couple hours at this point, I feel like. Or really even same thing, could be a couple hours, right? But with SEO, I thought blog posts like the Elope in Las Vegas one that I wrote years ago on a plane while I was flying to Vegas, I've gotten leads from that 3-4 years later. Wow. Tell me your Instagram post that does the same thing. Yeah. So it's a long game, it's a tedious game, but it is something that it's going to get you open a lot of doors, not only with like potential clients, but also because vendors can see that you're like recommending them. Now it's like, oh wait, I want to get on that list. How do I get on that list? Or they just see you as like an expert in the area, so they'll call you for help. You're now an expert with them. You're helping them out. Okay, well now who's on the preferred vendor list? You are. Yeah. It's very simple.
That's amazing. Yeah. So this is tenfold, right?
Yeah.
It is scratching the surface of SEO.
Yeah.
This will not answer all of your SEO questions.
Not even close.
It didn't even answer any of mine. No, just kidding. It definitely helped. It was very helpful. It gave me good insight. But I think most importantly, it made me kind of open my eyes and understand that SEO is something that A, it's not going away.
Yeah.
B, if I want my website to do anything other than just sit and decay into a dusty bowl, I need to be updating it and creating posts and doing blogs and making myself relevant if I want my website to perform, which is important because do you have a statistic? And if you don't, it's okay, but do you have a statistic on like how many people are actually searching for stuff on, like if I'm looking for a wedding photographer in Georgia, are people more prone to just search on Google, or is it like something that they're going to find them on Instagram? Is there any stats?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily like, I don't have any stats off the top of my head for sure, but I will say this. Every single person has Google on their phone. It's a built-in thing on iPhones. It's a built-in thing on Android phones, obviously. So like it's already in your pocket. So if you need to find something in the city, are you going to go on Facebook and look for that? Or are you going to go straight into Google and try and find what's in the city, right? Restaurants, food, all that stuff. So I'd say most people use search. Now, depending on whether or not they're going to look for their wedding photographer, it depends on your ideal client. If you are targeting somebody who is like 18 years old, they're probably on TikTok. Like they're just probably on TikTok. But if you're like me and you're like, yeah, at 18 years old, I had no money in the bank whatsoever, could not have afforded me in the first place. Why am I going to sit there and try and play with that market? I'm going to look for somebody who's like, I don't know, 24 to maybe 36, they're probably they're on their phones, they're checking things out, they're going to make an educated decision, and then also they have the budget to have the wedding that they want to have, which is the one that I want to be at. So statistics, I probably wouldn't even answer the question because it depends on the market.
True. That's a good point. Yeah, you can't blanket it all in one spot, but yeah, that's perfect analogy.
Yeah.
There's your ideal client, and anyone's ideal client could be anywhere, but it is very true. The more I think about it, this whole conversation, I've been sitting here thinking, do I really use Google that much to find things? And every restaurant, if I'm looking for somebody to do solar panels on my house or something, I'm going to Google.
Yeah,
And it's not because I'm old, it's just because that's the source where you're going to get a lot of information. You're going to get reviews laid out, all of the things you could possibly want to know about these companies, you will find in Google, and you won't find it elsewhere. So
yeah, and even if they use a different search platform, for example, Search Directly, they use Bing for some reason, or DuckDuckGo, all the stuff that you're doing for Google also works for those platforms. So you're probably ranking almost the same, if not better, on those platforms for doing the same thing that Google wants you to do.
That's wild.
And the other thing is, like, when people are very concerned, we have AI coming out, and they're like, oh, is AI going to take over? Because AI will answer questions for you. Here's the thing. One, in order to have answers, AI needs human input. Somewhere somebody has to know something, because there's not a robot walking around town getting reviews of restaurants nearby, right? And the other thing is that for every AI result, I might be off on the exact cost, but I think like a regular search result costs Google like 0.003 cents per search, but it's 0.3 cents per like AI search. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you have as many searches as Google does, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $59 billion worth of cost for Google to go from organic to AI.
Wow.
Doesn't mean it's not going to change things, but it's not going anywhere. And AI, if you go on Google right now and you type up something that gives you an AI answer, what it does is it pushes the advertising answers down. Google's main business, people don't realize this, the most money they make is from search ads. It's most of where their income comes from. It's not phones, it's not anything else. It is directly from that. So if they keep pushing those things down, what happens? The search business dies. You can't afford to completely erase organic search.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a feeling that AI searches are slowly but surely going to be very heavily tied into SEO.
Yeah.
Because I think that if they're not already, I mean, if I'm going to get an AI search of wedding photographers in Connecticut, I'm pretty sure it's going to go through the top 5 and go through their blog posts or whatever it is and accumulate its answer.
It's doing the same thing you would do, just a little bit faster. I mean, you can even see like some of the AI results that come up will also give credit in them. How are you going to get that credit if you don't write the blog post? You have to, it needs you to create content in order to fill this, in order to keep that business going, because they can't afford to kill it.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's the only way that the AI can operate. I mean, if everyone stopped doing their organic stuff, the organic SEO, then at no point in time would AI be able to be up to date. Because there is no information available that's current for it to actually go. So that's very true. So you will, not only are you helping yourself, but you're helping your future self with AI and everything in there.
Yeah, and it's a tool, really. I mean, you can use AI to help you write slightly better. I would not recommend, if you haven't written a blog post, just having AI just do the whole thing for you. You need to know how to do it correctly to see what it does wrong, because it's going to do some things wrong, and it can help you write faster by a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Roy, I think I learned more than I can digest right now. That was so much.
Effect on people.
That was so much. It was so valuable. I know you pitched the Facebook community before, so definitely if you're curious about SEO, if you want to learn more, definitely join that community. And I'm sure that's how they can kind of find you and get more. If you just search Roy Serafin, I'm pretty sure you're the number one ranked.
So the thing is, like, you can find me like even on my own website, roythephotographer.com, storingcommunity.com. We have a little bit kind of a breakdown on what services we offer. And then, if you want direct answers from me, a lot of times I'm giving out free advice inside that group whenever someone posts a question and asks. So I'm happy to do that. And we do semi-regular, whenever I can remember and get some time to do it, videos that answers a lot of questions.
And that's great. So thank you so much for joining in. If you're at home, be sure to check out more about this. I mean, this is marketing 101. To get your business off the ground, but B, appearing places, and it's just stuff that's it's just stuff that's priceless to your business.
I mean, again, just understanding what your customers are answering are looking for, and being able to answer that is a massive win for you. You could even do it in PDFs. That way you just have something to hand somebody. It's not going to help you SEO wise, but it will help your customer. And then also, again, because it's one part of a master marketing plan to connect you to other businesses, it's still going to help you in different ways. It's not always about just doing the SEO. That's one benefit of it, but I also get preferred vendor lists are nice places to be.
Thanks for tuning in to After the Shoot. Got any burning questions for today's guest, or just want to keep the conversation going? Drop us a comment if you're on YouTube, or join the Aftershoot community to share your thoughts. You can find the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to get notified as soon as we drop the next episode. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. And if you like this episode, I'd love it if you gave us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're watching this podcast. See you next time.